So we added also like a reasoning model. So basically, the AI model can now think before like it generates code. So that like we're utilizing Anthropic Claude 3.7 reasoning model. So that really added a lot of like benefits to the code generations. What else? We've added a lot of things.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Sitecore Water Cooler, the casual conversation podcast dedicated to covering all things related to Sitecore, including product updates, implementation insights, getting the most out of your Sitecore investment, and more. I'm your co-host today, Maggie Burke, Sitecore Operations Director and Sitecore MVP at AmericanEagle.com. We're back. Welcome back to the Sitecore Water Cooler podcast for 2025. The team has been busy at work on all the latest and greatest in Sitecore these days, and one of which is the continued enhancement of our in-house AI module, Sitecore JSS Copilot. Our team highlighted this tool at Sitecore Symposium in Nashville, and it did get quite the buzz around it. So we're joined today by two of our senior solution architects, Ahmed Okour and Lentz, to share even more detail about the module, how it works, and where the idea came from, and how we're actually integrating this module into our development process to streamline efforts. Ahmed, Alex, welcome to the water cooler.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys both for joining today. I feel like I've said it often that AI is pretty much a buzzword, but it honestly, at this point, feels like it's more than just a buzzword. We're seeing more and more that AI is really being a part of people's day-to-day activities. Really, at this point, whether it's kind of generating meeting notes, content writing, brand consolidation, and truly even development at this point. So it's funny, I actually spoke at the HIMSS Healthcare Conference the other week with Sitecore, and our booth was located in the AI Pavilion. And I will say that as someone who's been to conferences before, like usually by the last day, like, you know, things are kind of thinning out. People are getting ready to leave. Things, you know, kind of calm down. But it was buzzing. The entire conference, like the AI Pavilion specifically, I feel like was never really like, it never really slowed down. So it's kind of one of those things that really showed to me that AI is just becoming more and more prevalent really in this ecosystem. So I definitely want to talk to you guys a little bit more because we've highlighted it before on this podcast. But I want to know where things are today with Sitecore JSS Copilot and just kind of the module. So starting with you, Ahmed, I want to know a little bit more about just what's the high level overview? What is Sitecore JSS Copilot? Give us a brief idea just of what the tool does.
Yeah, sure. So basically, Sitecore JSS Copilot is a design to code tool. So it can convert like your screenshot, your Figma designs into a Sitecore JSS Next.js working components so that you can, and instead of like starting from scratch, you can just select your design in Figma, convert that into Sitecore JSS code using the Copilot. And then from there, like you can take it, you know, you can have back and forth like conversation with AI about like changes you want to make. And then at some point, like you might want to just take the code and add it to your code base and, you know, see it like how it looks on the Sitecore side. It does have additional features on the web interface, like things like you can preview the code while it's being rendered. So you don't have to like add the code to your code base, then deploy it, then see it. So it just like eliminate a lot of like the unnecessary friction that you usually do like when you start like working with a Sitecore JSS code.
Nice. And it sounds like that almost makes it faster too, right? You're not having to go through the steps of deploying it and doing everything just to see it. You can kind of see it before, you know, of course, yes, when you're actually putting it into, you know, the real life scenario, you're going to be deploying things and having to see it, but at least being able to preview it first definitely probably makes things a hell of a lot faster.
Yeah, it takes up around like 10-20 seconds to like see your design like, you know, becoming live. And like it can take static designs, like things like, you know, if you have a design of a slider or maybe like a code, it can convert that correctly to like a working Sitecore JSS Next.js component.
Nice. Okay. So I guess taking it back prior to before this was a thing, I want to know a little bit more about the backstory of the idea. I mean, again, we talked about how AI is prevalent. It's really just kind of been up and coming over the last few years, and now it's really here. So what's the backstory of how you kind of came up with, hey, let's see how something with AI can actually help us with development?
Yeah, sure. So the last year, like specifically the start of 2024, AI has been gaining momentum in the coding area. I would say that, you know, using AI for coding is the biggest use case for AI right now. So like the starting of 2024, like tools like V0 from Vercel or like Builder.io started like being momentum. So basically V0 is the same thing. It's a design to code or like prompt to code. So you can you can just go to V0 and say like, I want to create a landing page or something, and it can create that for you. Builder.io is the same thing, but like it adds the Figma integration as well. So that's where like the idea came from. Like, how can we build something like this, but create me like something for Sitecore JSS? A code that I can use and like in my Sitecore projects, because these products like they sell something, right?
Right.
So V0 is a great tool, but like they're trying to sell Next.js with Vercel, all of these things. Builder.io is the same. They're trying to sell their things. So we just wanted something that have our like basically like best practices and standards, and alongside with Sitecore, best practices as well. So how we can utilize AI to have the same functionality as these tools, but like to our standards. And
definitely. And I think the nice thing to mention too as well, there is definitely an emphasis on Sitecore. It's not just for Sitecore. You could technically use this in other areas, correct?
Yeah. So like AI is really good like with React and Next.js code. Basically, like it's good with other frameworks as well, but like these are the ones like because it was mostly trained on these things, and you have a lot of open source projects that are built on these frameworks. So like it really knows how to build code bases with these languages. So but yeah, we can utilize it for any other like platform as well. So not only Sitecore, but right now we're focusing on the Sitecore side of
of course. I mean, of course, our focus is definitely going to be on where can we leverage and use it in Sitecore, but it's nice to know that it's a tool that could agnostically work across the platform. So very cool. I think one of the things I'd like to talk about then is just kind of features of the tool, especially because, Nashville was a few months ago, right? So let's kind of talk about where things were when we presented it in Nashville and had, again, standing room only session around it. And then I'd love to kind of know where it's at now as we're a few months later. So Alex, you want to tell us a little bit about maybe some of the highlights around the tool even back in October?
Yeah. So when we left off in October in Nashville, when we last saw JSS Copilot, like Ahmed said, a lot of the focus was on Sitecore and on XM cloud migration. So how do we get our clients from XM, XP, on-prem to XM cloud easier, right? The conversation to have with the client to say, sorry, you're going to have to rewrite your MVC.NET application. This doesn't always go over that smoothly, right? You have a lot of conversations there. So in the infancy of the tool or the starting phases of the tool, it was, okay, how do we take those MVC components and how do we convert them to Next.js, right? Maybe you have some rendering content resolvers that you need to convert to GraphQL. The tool can handle that as well. To Ahmed's point, image to code, right? Figma to code, that was all starting to take place around October. And since then, I know that there's been a lot of changes to the tool as well since we last saw it there.
Very cool. So speaking to that, Ahmed, do you want to tell us maybe any of the enhancements that have actually been implemented with the tool since October?
Yeah, sure. So just like the interface is much kind of like intuitive now. It gives you the kind of like the continuous chat interface. Basically, like you have a chat on the left side, you have the code files on the middle, and you have your code on the right side. So things we've added since October, basically like the ability to add projects in the tool. So you basically like if you have different projects, and these projects might have different instructions that you want AI to follow, or things like you have some base code that you want to include in the context that you're sending to AI. So let's say like you have a helper functions that you want to use within this code generation. So you can add that as a context to your project and say like, I've already built these things, make sure to use them, basically. Like, because like, the problem with the things like V0, like you can't add that much context to your code generation. So that always build everything from scratch for you. But let's say like you have something that you've already created before in the project, you can just like be able with the JSS Copilot to say like, hey, I already have this, like utilize this when you're generating code. That's one of the things. And that basically
allows for consistency. I mean, too.
Yeah. So like
super nice.
Yeah. And instead of like taking the code and then like refactoring it to fit your like standards, like you can take that code that is already following your best practices and standards. Like we've added a lot of things. So for example, like code differences between like the versions, like every time you make a request, like a prompt back to AI, it generates some changed code in a way, so like you can see what was the exact difference that you saw. Another thing, like the ability to upload like images as part of like the conversation. So like you take a screenshot here, like AI, you did not do it this the correct way, like please like see this screenshot and make sure to fix that.
Mhm.
So we added also like a reasoning model. So basically the AI model can now think before like it generates code. So that like we're utilizing Anthropic Claude 3.7 reasoning model. So that really added a lot of like benefits to the code generations. What else? We've added a lot of things.
And a lot of these changes are based off of feedback that were received in
great.
Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody's able to see it and get their hands on it and try it.
Yes.
They came back and said, "Hey, why aren't we able to give it reference to our design system, to our code base? How do we do that, right?
Yeah.
How do we see things in more real time?" Or
No, I love that because again, I think that was a really exciting part about the session that you guys had was having kind of that QR code and access to the tool to actually get feedback from the community and people that are, doing a lot of the development, regardless of if they're at our agency and things like that, to be able to kind of say, like, how can we improve this? We're trying to make sure that this is helpful for, all to use and things like that. So I think that that's extremely exciting. And it sounds like there's just continually going to be things that are enhanced to it. And honestly, I love the point that you made, Alex, just talking about like where this all started and stemmed from was a lot of the conversations when it came into migration path was around, okay, like if we're going to move from, XP or XM, like we're going to have to think about rewriting all of this code. And that's a daunting statement to make to any client. It's a hurdle. It's something that you have to think about and things like that. And so thinking about this from the business side too, of like, how are we going to streamline and make this easier so that it is an easier conversation to have and it's not a sticking point or something that is going to scare anybody off from making the migration itself, I think is a really strong point for the tool and just kind of where it stemmed from and now what it's kind of growing into. I wanted to ask, are we now, I know we had a user group shortly after Symposium 2 where we kind of did a lot of our wrap up stuff and you guys presented on this again as well. And there were some questions around just like, real life, like, are we kind of using this and things like that? So is there anything you guys can speak to in terms of just how we're using this tool in kind of real life right now?
Yeah. So we did start using this tool in a couple of projects that we have started with XM Cloud. And a lot of the improvements that I mentioned are based on the feedback I got from the team. Basically, like say, like, hey, can I upload an image? Can I make edits to the code? Can I see the differences? So all of these like improvements are now driven by our
own development team.
Own development
oh, that's
team.
Awesome. Okay.
So and this is like at some point I start like making improvements. I'm just gonna wait for like see like what the
We'll just have quarterly improvements
like,
because otherwise you're just going to be improving this all the time.
Yeah,
so.
because like sometimes you just think like from your perspective, and then like you have to like see what like the real like user how are they using it. So and this is like what's driving the improvements of the tool. So like what else do you like next?
No, I love that because again, yes, you're really not going to fully understand something until you're kind of boots on the ground actually using it and seeing like, hey, where can we make this more optimized and things like that, and helping kind of the development teams. And so I love to hear that you're getting direct feedback from our own team to kind of improve things where they can be. So that's awesome. I guess then my next question, this is a great lead into it, is what's on the roadmap for enhancements for the tool? Clearly you're getting feedback all the time. Are there any big kind of things that it's like, we definitely want to plan to make this sort of enhancement to the module, and this is in our kind of upcoming future?
So there are two big like things that people are asking for. One is direct connection to your GitHub account or like GitHub repo. So this way, like I mentioned the project section where you can upload your files, but this is different. Like if we can connect directly to a GitHub repository, so this way, like as you're like typing your prompt, you just say like, hey, reference this file in my project, and just make sure like you utilize this specific functionality before you generate the code. So this way, like you have the entire you can add the context of your code base from the tool. So this is one of the things that it's a big improvement, but like that's in the roadmap. The other one is like, and I'm still like trying to figure out what's the best way to do this, is direct integration with XM Cloud itself. So basically, like we generate the component, right? And this component would require like things like a template for your data source or a template for your rendering parameters. And we have all of this information in the code. You can just extract that to as a YAML file and push that to Sitecore. So this way, like not only you have the code that is generated, you also have the items, templates created for you. And one good thing that in the Figma design, like when we convert the design, we're actually extracting all of the kind of like the dummy data that you have, the lorem ipsum, the content, the images themselves. We actually slice the images into actual images and upload them to the cloud. So this way, like we have all of the information we need. We know all the feeds of the template. We can just upload that to Sitecore, and with few click of a button, you can have the code in your code base. You can have the items, the templates, and some items with the dummy data that you have in your design, and you can just preview it within your XM cloud.
Wow, that's quite a roadmap, but that's very exciting. No, I mean that's great, and I think again, I can only imagine that this is helping to streamline development efforts, make things again. I think the biggest piece that we hit on was consistency. It's a really big area that it's nice to just kind of know that there is a consistent model and things like that, because that also helps to streamline so that you're not having many components that are doing the exact same thing or many versions of a certain component. Like it kind of helps to slim that down. So I do feel like it's a very thrilling time for us to really see this kind of module coming to life and knowing that we're using it in, certain projects or even just internal resources and things like that too, because it makes it feel like we're definitely really implementing and embracing AI as much as it's prevalent in, real life at this point. So I guess in terms of that, are there anything outside of the module that you feel like we're leveraging AI just in development right now?
I mean, it's changed everything, right? So you've gone from a time where a developer would have a problem, they'd have a component to build or something that they would need to take from requirements to fruition, right? And maybe you run into a problem, maybe you don't know what you're doing, right? You go to Google and you start looking up, okay, who has had this problem before? Common symptoms. What have they tried? What have they done? Have I tried this? Am I seeing similar things, right? You've gone from Google to Stack Exchange to Sitecore Stack Exchange to maybe turning to Slack and asking other people in the community, hey, have you seen this before, right? Now you can have a streamlined conversation with Claude. And you can say, I'm building this component in this framework, in this language, in this version. This is what I've done, and this is what I'm running into. Here's my code file. Can you help me? Right? And you can get real-time feedback and real-time. It's almost like you have a pair programmer with you at all times. So
you have a little parrot on your shoulder,
you have a little rubber duck that you can talk to that actually responds back and actually takes all of that information that you might have spent hours searching for and brings it to you, right? And makes, to Ahmed's point with Claude 3.7, now you have the thinking model, right? So it can sit there and it can come up with reasoning and thinking and all of this stuff before it presents you with a possible solution or possible answer. And you can try something and you can say, okay, I tried that and now I'm getting a different error. Maybe what else is going on?
Even Google these days has that AI overview where it's like, I mean, you Google something and it gives you like, a rundown of everything. So you're not having to click through links. I mean, it's wild. What's this I'm hearing about vibe coding or what? Want to give me a little bit of an intake on that, Ahmed?
Yeah, sure. But before I get to that, let me mention also Cursor AI.
Okay.
So the Cursor AI is a fork from VS Code, which is like a development tool that Microsoft created. And then this company forked that VS Code, and they added their own AI integration to it. So like Alex mentioned, like previously you would take your question, like your code, and then go to the chat interface of Claude or ChatGPT and ask it the question, upload the files. But now with Cursor AI, like you have a development environment that knows, which can be scary, but but like it knows your code base.
Ooh.
And basically like, hey, I'm having this problem on this file. I'm not entirely sure, like I've tried this and this and that. You give it all of the context of the problem, right? And it basically scans the code base, sees like, what are the references to this file, what could possibly go wrong. So, like you, without like even you going to the web.
That's
all there with you.
So it's like right within like, And we've been like trying to evaluate how we can use this, because like this tool can be like a bit dangerous for like juniors,
right?
Because like sometimes like like as seniors, like we can understand like what's the solution, like what's the reason behind like why AI came up with this solution,
right?
But sometimes it can be too good,
Yeah.
it fixes the problem with you for you, and like I don't know, like as long as it fixes it, like I'm gonna push it
Right.
without like knowing the exact steps that AI took to fix it. So from here, because it got like coding got much easier now because you have this development environment where you can just talk back to AI. The temp
Talk back to your developer friend. Your
vibe
friend.
coding, people would just start to go to V0 to create a design of a landing page or something or an application. Take the design, bring it to Cursor AI as a development environment, and then they start like chatting with it, and without writing any single code. Basically, that's what vibe coding is like. Basically, don't write any code, just natural English, and just like keep back and forth with AI until you have a working application. Like, and people are keep posting their like their applications online about like I've created this personal like like weight management app or something. Like things for them. Like it's not like
it's not personal, or I mean, it's not public.
Yeah,
kind
but
of.
like if you have a small idea, like you always wanted this app, and you might not be like you're not a coder or something like these tools like allows you to like build things and like deploy them without the need to know like what's the code is doing, which can be scary, but
yeah, of course. Vibe coding, what an
It's like
interesting
it's like English is the new development language now, right?
yeah,
But
seems that way.
and going back to what Ahmed said, it's not just about problems anymore either. Right? It's about code optimizations. It's about code reviews. It's about saying, okay, I've got this file and it's working, but maybe it's a little slow. Right. And saying, hey, is there a way that I can optimize this and I can make it better? Right. And it's the learning aspect of that too. Of the response and saying, hey, here you were doing it this way. Maybe you should consider doing it this way for faster response time. And you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, right? And it's code reviews too. Somebody submits a code review. It's kind of taking the grunt work out of saying, okay, are they, doing everything up to best practices? Are they introducing any unknown bugs? Are they doing anything that doesn't follow our best practices?
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's great. Because again, it's to your point, not always going to be running into like, hey, I'm running into this issue or things like that. It's really just helping to kind of streamline even just like operational efforts and things like that. And I think one thing that I feel like is also kind of prevalent too is that, you hear all the time with AI becoming bigger that, it's like, oh, is AI going to like take over our jobs or like this or that? And it's not just in the tech world. You hear that everywhere, right? But I think it's a really good point and something that I feel like you guys are ringing on, that it's AI doesn't have to necessarily be scary that it's taking away anybody's job or anything like that, or taking away like what we're doing. It's enhancing it. It's improving things and it's making things better and streamlined and making people better at their jobs actually, because it's like at the end of the day, you're learning things from it and things like that and whatnot. So I do think that that's a really good point to make with it as well. I think one of the other areas too is we have gotten early access into Sitecore Stream. That was a big one that was announced at Symposium as well. Their kind of AI tool. Any initial feedback that you guys have had just from, the early access that we have seen with that? Because I do feel like that's going to be a big one that people are going to definitely see a lot more clients using.
Yeah. So Sitecore Stream is a set of like a lot of like different features. So like I can focus on few areas. Alex can mention few areas, but like it's across all of the Sitecore products, and there is a dedicated portal for Stream, and that's for the brand kit. So in Sitecore Stream, you have a section where you can define your brand kit. So like for example, American Eagle have their own like PDF that outlines brand kit, like the SEO, like guideline, the tone of voice, the do's and don'ts, like what's our brand, what are our assets, like what our like kind of like the fonts, our imagery, and like our colors, all of these things. That there's a section you can upload that, and then Sitecore Stream can utilize that brand kit in different areas. One of them is like assistant, where you basically chat back and forth with Sitecore Stream AI, and with the addition of like that brand kit context aware, so it knows your brand as you're talking to it. So you can say like, create me a campaign on LinkedIn about this topic, and it will also always like take into consideration the brand that you have. So it can generate you that. It have the ability to search the web. So if you ask the question that it's the AI doesn't know about this like specific event that happened like 1 week ago, so it can go search the web and get you the result back. So that's the assistant interface. There is a section for like kind of like project management in a way, and there is an AI integration where like it can create tasks for you. It can kind of like basically like it can create actions based on like the completion of these tasks, like create a page in XM Cloud, for example, add components. And some areas are still in progress, but that's what like Sitecore Stream is going for.
Nice.
So this is like the interface for Sitecore Stream. There are other areas of Sitecore Stream across different Sitecore products, like things within the XM Cloud pages builder. So, optimize content, make it shorter, make it longer, translate. This is one of the functionality that that I just knew about yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always changing. No, and that's really cool because I think one of the nice pieces of it that you just mentioned is, we've spent a lot of this podcast talking about AI and development, but everything that you kind of just hit on was for marketers, for project management. Like there's a lot of different areas that it can be used. So we're actually going to have the Sitecore Stream team on our podcast in a few weeks with our co-host John Price to talk a lot more about that tool, how it's being used, what enhancements are coming, and things like that. So definitely be sure to check that out when that rolls out. I do have a final kind of wrap-up question for you guys, because I think one of the things that came out of the Nashville conference, and even just kind of follow-ups that we've had around this, is the name. Because Sitecore JSS Pilot, it lends itself to there was some confusion when we were at the conference that it was the Sitecore tool. And even what we hit on earlier with the fact that it is not completely agnostic to Sitecore. While we're leveraging it mainly there, it can be used elsewhere as well. I want to know from you guys, if you had a chance to, and I mean, obviously you still have the chance to, but if you could name it something else, any clever names you guys can think of to give the tool. Not vibe coding, though.
Not vibe copilot. Vibe copilot.
Vibe copilot. There you go.
Here we go.
No, like you mentioned, like JSS, like Sitecore JSS Copilot gave the impression that it's a Sitecore product.
Yeah.
But like I still do like the name.
Of course.
But
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just
it's catchy. But like we're exploring different names. Like one of the names is the Huma Copilot. So Huma is a Persian mythical bird that basically keeps flying, it never lands. So this is like kind of like it's an AI copilot for you.
It's always going.
Yeah, it never gets tired. Always flying for you. So that's one of the names that we're trying.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, you heard it here first.
And it fits like our American Eagle, naming convention. We have Rock, we have American Eagle.
Yeah. I like that. I was thinking, like triple AI, like Ahmed, Alex, AI, triple A. It helps you. But I'm here all week, folks. So
naming things with AI is like the hardest thing. Like whenever you try to see I came up with this smart name, and you go to Google and someone already took that.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, thanks AI for telling me that someone already named this AI tool this name. So I hear you. I mean, hey, it's ever evolving. Nothing to say that you can't change the name, but for now, we'll stick with Sitecore JSS Copilot. Ahmed, Alex, thank you both for joining us at the Sitecore Water Cooler today. I look forward to collaborating with you guys in the future, and we hope to have you guys back on the Water Cooler again soon.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Sitecore Water Cooler podcast. Find out more information about AmericanEagle.com's Sitecore services and today's topic in the description below. This episode is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. I'm your host, Maggie Burke, and special thanks to our executive producers, Renee Nelson, Julia Kleppage, and Brian Winger.